Beach FM, locals talking to locals.
Beach FM 106.3. Well, he's dancing around his lounge because it's a bit cold in Paikakariki this morning, is our Ralph McCalister. Good morning, Ralph.
Oh, yes, and we're all trying to keep warm, but we'll get there, won't we?
Oh, absolutely. Now, you had a book that you wished to have a little extra time to speak about today, so it's all yours.
It's called Educated, and it's by a young woman called Tara Westover. And I think, without exaggeration, it's one of the most stunning, superb, painful, brilliantly written book I've read in quite some time, Nigel. That's why I wanted to spend a little bit of time.
Sure.
It's not a novel, as I usually review for you, but it's a memoir. And at the moment, Tara is now 27, 28 years old. It's told by her. She was brought up in Utah in America, and she was brought up by a very, very narrow-minded Mormon father and mother. And so she was supposed to be homeschooled, but she never was, except to be rigidly not informed about the world. When she was 7 years old, she was out in the scrap junkyard sorting out scrap metal, and that was the way she spent the next few years of her life. She had no contact with the outside world whatsoever, except with her father, mother, and the 6 brothers, I think. They were her family. They were her centre. It's quite extraordinary to think that somebody of that age should go through what she did, but it wasn't that their father and mother didn't love her. It's just that they believed that God would take care of everything, so they would not allow any form of hospitalization. Doctors were barred because they were part of the socialist empire plotting the end of the world. They were not allowed to have anything except no safety measures, so if there was a serious accident, God would look after it. Mum was a herbalist, and she tried, and with some success, had made up herbs and potions and so on. But I'll give you a couple of examples. When she was 15, she managed to get to the local university. Now, remember, this young woman was completely excluded from the world. She goes into her lecture with the rest of her class of young women. And she says at one stage, she sees other students asking questions, and so she puts her hand up and she says, "Oh, I don't know this word. What does it mean?" And then she says there's enormous violent silence, and the professor snapped, "Thanks for that," and went on with his lecture. Afterwards, she was totally confused. Her student mates said, "You shouldn't have joked like that." So she went to the computer and looked up the word that she didn't understand. And what was the word? The word was Holocaust.
Oh.
And that's the nature of her complete absence from the real world. She didn't know who Martin Luther King was. She didn't know who Hitler was. She didn't know anything about the term, the final solution. And yet, through all this, somehow, she writes without bitterness about all these happenings and non-happenings. And at the age of 27 now, I think, you would not believe that she has become a PhD and a doctor from Cambridge University in England. And she's a lecturer at one of the universities now. It's an extraordinary story, and it's painful. I can't remember reading something where I really had to stop reading at times because I was so upset, either with the father, either with what was happening with the narrowness of people in a form of religion, of which, of course, I'm sure is not typical of Mormonism or Catholicism or whatever. It's the extreme version. But it's wonderful that the book is called Educated, because it's an education for her her immediate family, and of course for us. And so I'm going to stick my head out, or whatever it is, and just suggest that it's going to be a book that's going to go down in the annals as one of the finest stories, true stories, that's been written in the last, I would say, 30, 40 years. So I do urge your readers to, and I know I've just checked with Paper Plus, it's there with Kay, and who incidentally came to the show on Sunday, and we had a good chat.
Yes.
But they've got copies there, and if I were going to say, look, buy one book in the next few weeks or months, that would be it. Tara Westover is her name, and if you find a photograph of her, you'll think, gosh, she looks about 15, and she's in her late 20s now. So uplifting, lyrical, elegiac, and it really finally makes you thrilled that somehow the human race can survive with the quality and the tenacity that it usually shows to people. So I hope you don't mind my going on about it.
No, that's fantastic. Sounds very interesting. Just shows you, though, you can educate yourself later in life and become as famous as yourself, or educated as yourself. I mean, I don't know whether I'd be able to watch the film, but I'm sure if she wants, she can go on to, well, perhaps write more. I don't know. Yes.
But, as I say, it's one of the most moving books I've read in a very long time.
Good on you, Ralph. We'll push that one along a wee bit. Educated, Tara Westover, a memoir. Sounds...
That's it.
Yep. Thanks very much for that, Ralph, and we'll catch you next week if we can.
Yes, you might. In the meantime, I'm flying up to Auckland for an awards ceremony, so I'm just looking for a black tie. So I hope I can find one in the next couple.
And the
going
award
up on Thursday and coming back Friday.
And the award ceremony is what?
It's for my dear friend Cliff Curtis, who's being awarded I think it's a Kia. I haven't got much detail. They just rang me from LA and said, will you come, please?
Oh, lovely. Well done.
So
well, we'll hear about that next
to
week too.
Oh, you will if you'd like to. Yes,
we will.
Very happy.
Good on you, Ralph. Look for that black tie. That's the most important thing. Right.
Okay.
We'll catch you next week. Okay. Ralph McCalister here on Beach FM.
106.3 Beach FM.